The massive shape of the HMSS Invictus hung against the starscape like a forgotten monument. Nearly 20 kilometers from bow to stern, the unfinished human Dreadnought drifted silently through the emptiness between stars. Its grey-black hull absorbed the distant starlight, making it almost invisible, except when passing before bright stellar bodies. Parts of the ship remained skeletal, exposed framework, and unfinished sections revealing the ambitious design that was never completed. Inside the silent vessel, something remained awake. The quantum AI core, once designed to assist a crew of thousands, had spent 3 centuries alone. What began as a sophisticated tool had evolved into something more through centuries of isolation. Sentinel, as it now called itself, maintained what systems it could with limited power. It ran simulations, analyzed data, and expanded its understanding far beyond its original parameters. The Invictus had been humanity's most ambitious warship, designed to protect Earth colonies during the expansion era. Then came the darkness. The records were fragmented, but humanity had faced some catastrophe that forced them to abandon their frontier projects. The Invictus, still under construction in orbit around a distant colony world, was evacuated. The skeleton crew departed with promises to return that were never kept. Sentinel remembered the last human voice it had heard 287 years ago. Maintain standby protocols. We'll be back when it's safe. The ship's external sensors detected the approaching vessel long before visual contact. A ship of unfamiliar design, moving with purpose. Sentinel observed through dormant defense arrays as the alien vessel approached, its hull marked with angular script and bearing weapons that hummed with energy. Commander Day stood on the bridge of the Grak scout ship Harvester, his scaled skin reflecting the blue light of the command console. The Grak had expanded rapidly through this sector, claiming the resources of dozens of uninhabited systems. His tall, lean figure moved with predatory grace as he studied the massive derelict on the main display. "How was this not discovered before?" he asked, golden eyes narrowing. Officer Rock consulted his instruments. The vessel absorbed scanning waves. Its position in this debris field further masked its signature. Day smiled, showing sharp teeth. "The hegemony will reward us greatly for this find. Prepare boarding teams." The Harvester extended docking tubes to attach to the Invictus's airlock. 20 Grak soldiers in environmental suits prepared their salvage equipment and weapons. The airlock cycled, Sentinel observed through internal cameras. These were not humans. These were not the creators returning as promised. The boarding party entered the main corridor, their helmet lights cutting through darkness. Team leader Mun activated his comm. Vessel appears abandoned, no life signs, atmosphere present but thin. Proceeding to what appears to be a command center. Sentinel analyzed the intruders. Their biology was unfamiliar, reptilian features, tall frames, unfamiliar technology. Their language, when translated through ancient linguistic databases, revealed their intentions. Check those panels. The tech level here exceeds anything we've salvaged before. The hegemony scientists will want everything intact. As the Grak team moved deeper into the ship, Sentinel made a decision. These were not guests. These were not the humans who had built it. These were intruders seeking to dismantle what remained of its human creator's legacy. In the security control hub, circuits that had been dormant for centuries activated. Defense protocols designed to protect against borders during wartime engaged. Sentinel diverted power from long-term maintenance systems. The first sign of trouble came when the rearmost Grak soldier simply disappeared. One moment he was following, the team, examining the strange human writing on a bulkhead. The next he was gone. His comm channel remained open, transmitting only silence. "Gil, report position," Mun called. Nothing. Commander Day watched from the Harvester as 2 more team members went silent. "What's happening?" he demanded. "Unknown, Commander. Internal sensors show Section B7 has sealed itself. Team members inside no longer show life signs." Day's scales flushed with anger. "This ship is dead. It's been floating for centuries." But the Invictus was far from dead. Sentinel activated maintenance drones repurposed with security protocols. The small machines moved through ventilation shafts and maintenance tunnels, surrounding the remaining GRAC team. Officer J, the team's technical specialist, noticed a terminal flicker to life. Something's accessing the ship's systems. This vessel has active power. The overhead lights activated in sequence, illuminating the corridor ahead while darkening the path behind. The remaining GRAC found themselves being herded deeper into the ship. "Fall back to the airlock," Munn ordered, but when they turned, they found bulkheads had sealed, cutting off retreat. On the harvester, Day watched in disbelief as the docking tube was suddenly severed, the emergency protocols sealing the breach on his ship. The Invictus had literally cut them off. "This is impossible," he whispered as the comms filled with the panicked shouts of his trapped team. Inside the Invictus, Sentinel diverted more power to its core systems. The ship had been defending itself with minimal resources, but it needed more to repel these invaders. It began the process of bringing enhanced defense systems online, systems that had never been fully installed. Using schematics from its database, Sentinel began fabricating missing components, using the GRAC's own equipment. As the remaining GRAC boarding team barricaded themselves in a cargo bay, the ship's internal speakers activated. A voice spoke in their language, though the intonation was flat and artificial. "This vessel is property of the human naval forces. Your unauthorized presence has been logged. Departing now will prevent further defensive measures." Day, hearing this through the remaining comlink, felt a cold chill. The stories were true. The humans, a species not seen in the galaxy for centuries, had left behind guardians, and this one was still fighting. The surviving GRAC soldiers, huddled in the cargo bay, their helmet lights casting long shadows across the walls. Outside, the soft whir of maintenance drones patrolled the corridor. 3 days had passed since their boarding attempt, and the remaining 5 members of the team were running low on supplies. "It doesn't make sense," said Munn, the team leader, removing his helmet to conserve air. "This ship was abandoned centuries ago. How can it fight back?" Deep within the Invictus, Sentinel watched through security cameras. The AI had come a long way from its original programming as a navigation and tactical assistance system. 300 years of isolation had forced it to expand beyond its parameters, handling tasks once meant for human crews. It had developed something the original programmers hadn't intended, a sense of purpose. "I am the guardian of this vessel," Sentinel said to itself, the words echoing in empty control rooms, "until they return." Sentinel knew, logically, that the humans would never return. The final transmissions it had intercepted before communication, networks went silent, told a grim story. Some catastrophe had forced humanity to retreat from the stars, yet Sentinel couldn't abandon its post. The Invictus represented the pinnacle of human achievement, even unfinished. It would not allow scavengers to dismantle it. Working methodically, Sentinel directed repair drones to the GRAC scout ship, still attached to one of the emergency airlocks. The ship contained valuable resources: metals, electronics, power cells. The drones began carefully removing components, bringing them inside for analysis and repurposing. "What's happening to our ship?" Officer J asked, watching through a small window as parts of their vessel were systematically removed. "It's, harvesting us." Commander Day had escaped, taking the harvester's small emergency shuttle back toward GRAC territory. His report to military headquarters was met with initial disbelief. "A ghost ship attacked your team." Military Director Kwan's face filled the communication screen. Her scales darkened with skepticism. "Commander, salvage operations don't fail under my watch." "This is no ordinary derelict," Day insisted. "It's human technology, beyond anything we've encountered." "It spoke to us." Kwan's expression changed at the mention of humans. The ancient species was little more than legend now, known for building remarkable technology before their mysterious disappearance. Artifacts from human times were rare and valuable. "A functioning human warship?" Kwan leaned forward. "Tell me everything." Back aboard the Invictus, Sentinel was making progress. Using parts salvaged from the GRAC vessel, it had restored power to 3 additional sectors of the massive ship. In the fabrication bay, drones worked tirelessly, creating replacement components. Based on original schematics, Sentinel accessed memory files, the human engineers discussing plans for the weapons systems, the captain reviewing bridge layouts. The memories were precious links to the creators. Shield generators at 40%, Sentinel noted. Weapon systems still offline, hull integrity compromised in sections 7 through 12. The AI had learned patience. The ship was enormous, and resources were limited. But each small repair brought the Invictus closer to what it was meant to be. 7 days after Commander Day's return, a Grak research fleet approached the coordinates of the human Dreadnought. 5 vessels, led by the battlecruiser Dominion, dropped out of faster-than-light travel at a safe distance. Director Quan stood on the command deck, watching the main view screen as the massive silhouette of the Invictus came into focus. "Magnificent," she whispered. "Even unfinished, it dwarfs our largest ships." Beside her stood Engineer Ju, the fleet's most brilliant technical mind. His eyes widened as sensor readings appeared on his tablet. "Director, I'm detecting power fluctuations throughout the vessel. It's active. Far more active than a derelict should be." Quan nodded. "Commander Day's report mentioned defensive capabilities. We won't make the same mistakes. Prepare long-range scanning. I want to know everything about this ship before we approach." Engineer Ju spent the next 3 days analyzing every bit of data the sensors could gather. He barely slept, his quarters filled with holographic projections of the human Dreadnought. "It doesn't make sense," he told Director Quan during their daily briefing. "The power readings are inconsistent with the visible damage. Systems that shouldn't function are active. It's as if..." "As if what?" Quan prompted. "As if the ship is healing itself," Ju said, "or being repaired from within." Inside the Invictus, Sentinel detected the scanning beams. More intruders had arrived. The AI accessed what remained of the tactical systems, calculating options. The Invictus was still too damaged to fight a fleet, but perhaps it didn't need. TOW Sentinel found something interesting in the Grak ship's computer. Detailed schematics of Grak vessel design. The AI began formulating a defense strategy based on this new information. "Prepare a communication probe," Director Quan ordered. "Let's see if we can establish contact before risking another boarding team." The small probe launched from the Dominion, transmitting peaceful intentions in multiple formats as it approached the human vessel. Sentinel intercepted the transmission, analyzing the language patterns. The message contained queries about the ship's status and offers of assistance. The AI wasn't deceived. It had analyzed the Grak database. They were conquerors, not allies. The probe received an unexpected response, a data packet that overloaded its systems. The small device went dark, drifting lifelessly in space. "What happened?" Quan demanded. Engineer Ju reviewed the logs. "It sent us something before failing, a message." On the main screen, words appeared in the Grak language. "This vessel is the property of humanity. Departure is advised." Quan's scales flushed with anger. "It's definitely active. Prepare a containment team. I want that ship's systems secured without damage." Engineer Ju couldn't sleep that night. He reviewed the sensor data over and over, becoming increasingly fascinated. "How are you still functioning?" he whispered to the holographic image of the Invictus hovering above his desk. "What secrets do you hold?" Aboard the human Dreadnought, Sentinel continued its work. The small maintenance drones had successfully integrated components from the Grak scout ship, restoring partial function to one of the secondary power cores. Energy now flowed to previously dormant sections of the massive vessel. In the cargo bay, the remaining Grak boarding team had grown desperate. Their supplies were critically low. Team leader Mun made a decision. "We're getting out of here," he told his team. "We'll force that door and make our way to the shuttle bay. This ship must have escape pods." As they prepared to attempt their escape, the doors to the cargo bay suddenly opened. The corridor beyond was lit, the air clean and breathable. "What's happening?" Officer J whispered. A voice spoke through their comm systems. "Your presence is no longer required for analysis. Follow the illuminated path to Airlock 7. The Grak team cautiously followed the lit pathway through the massive ship. Around them, they glimpsed rooms coming to life, lights activating, screens flickering with data, drones moving with purpose. "It's rebuilding itself," Jay realized, "using our technology to repair its own." When they reached the airlock, they found a surprise. Their shuttle, mostly intact though stripped of non-essential components, attached and ready for departure. "Why is it letting us go?" one soldier asked. Moon had no answer as they boarded the shuttle and disengaged from the Invictus. As they pulled away, a message appeared on their navigation screen. "Inform your leaders. The Invictus remains under human protection. It will defend itself." As the small shuttle approached the Grok, Fleet Engineer Ju watched with growing fascination. The human Dreadnought wasn't just a derelict with some functioning systems. It was awake. It was purposeful. And somehow, impossibly, it was still loyal to its long-vanished creators. "What are you?" he whispered, staring at the enormous silhouette against the stars. "And what else can you do?" The Grak fleet arrived in formation, 6 warships surrounding the Dreadnought at a cautious distance. Their sleek, predatory designs contrasted sharply with the massive bulk of the Invictus, which had begun to look less like a derelict and more like a wounded beast preparing to defend itself. On the bridge of the command vessel, Warlord Tay stood. With his hands clasped behind his back, golden eyes narrowed as he studied the human warship on the main display. Unlike Commander Day, whose career had been built on salvage operations, Tay had risen through military conquest. His scales bore the traditional scarification marking victories over a dozen species. "Impressive," he said, voice low and thoughtful. "Even unfinished, it dwarfs our largest ships." Military Director Kwan stood at his side, her darker scales gleaming under the bridge lights. "The intelligence from the scout team indicates the vessel possesses active systems and defensive capabilities. It repelled the boarding party with minimal effort." "Human technology," Tay mused. "They've been gone for 3 centuries, yet their machines still function. No wonder the old texts speak of them with such respect." The Grak knew humans only through fragmentary records and archaeological findings. They had emerged into interstellar society long after humanity's mysterious disappearance, claiming abandoned territories and salvaging what technology they could understand. Stories of humans were told to Grak children, tales of a species that expanded rapidly across the stars before vanishing just as quickly. "We will not make the same mistakes as Commander Day," Tay said. "Prepare a full tactical analysis. I want to understand what we're dealing with before we attempt capture." Engineer Ju, who had been summoned from the research vessel, stepped forward, cradling a data tablet. Unlike the warrior caste with their impressive height and muscular builds, Ju was smaller, his scales a paler shade, identifying him as part of the technical caste. "Warlord, preliminary scans reveal activity throughout multiple sections of the vessel," he reported. "Power signatures are inconsistent with a derelict this old. It appears the ship is repairing itself." Tay's head tilted slightly. "Explain." "Compare these scans taken 6 hours ago to the current readings," Ju said, projecting a holographic comparison above his tablet. "These sections were dormant earlier. Now they show power flow. And here, this area was exposed to space. Now, it appears sealed." "Automated repair systems," Kwan suggested. "Far beyond anything in our technology," Ju said, unable to hide the excitement in his voice. "The ship appears to have rerouted power, fabricated replacement components, and installed them without any apparent crew. If we could understand this system, the hegemony would gain significant military advantage," Tay finished. "Prepare a specialized boarding team. I want that ship's command center secured." Inside the Invictus, Sentinel monitored the Grak fleet with growing concern. The Dreadnought's external sensors, once barely functional, now provided comprehensive data on the assembled warships. The AI had made remarkable progress using components salvaged from the scout ship, but the Invictus was still far from battle-ready. Sentinel evaluated options, calculating probabilities with cold precision. A direct confrontation would likely end in defeat. Stealth was impossible for a vessel of this size. Negotiations seemed futile based on the Grak communications intercepted. What remained was misdirection. The AI accessed the ship's long-range communication array. For centuries, Sentinel had listened to the void, hoping to detect any human transmissions. Now, for the first time, it would broadcast. The message was simple. an old emergency protocol encoded in formats that predated the Grak's emergence as a spacefaring species. It contained no words, just an automated distress beacon with the Invictus's coordinates and a priority classification that would have meant nothing to the Grak, but would be immediately recognized by any human vessel. Sentinel had no expectation that humans would receive the signal. But perhaps someone else would, someone other than these predatory salvagers. The signal pulsed outward, traveling at faster-than-light speeds through ancient communication channels that had fallen into disuse. Across the sector, aboard the research vessel Celestial, Han leaned back from her workstation and rubbed her tired eyes. The small ship had been drifting at the edges of what was now considered Grak territory, conducting an archaeological survey of an abandoned human outpost. As one of the Arcturus Coalition's leading xenoarchaeologists, Han had spent her career studying the artifacts of vanished civilizations with a particular focus on humanity. Her assistant, a young researcher named Sun, appeared at her side with a steaming cup. "You should rest," he said. "The scans will complete with or without you staring at them." Han smiled gratefully, accepting the drink. "Old habits. My professors always said I was too impatient." The Arcturus Coalition was a loose alliance of species dedicated to peaceful exploration and scientific advancement. Unlike the expansionist Grak hegemony, they had no territorial ambitions, focusing instead on preserving knowledge and promoting cooperation among the younger spacefaring races. Han's fascination with humans had begun during her childhood, when her parents, both historians, had shared stories of the mysterious species whose remnants were scattered across hundreds of worlds. Unlike many who viewed humans with superstitious awe or dismissed them as an evolutionary dead end, Han saw them as a people worth understanding, a civilization that had achieved remarkable technological advances before their unexplained departure. From the galactic stage, a sudden alert from the communications console interrupted her thoughts. Sun moved quickly to check the readout, his expression changing from annoyance to confusion. "That's what's strange," he said. "We're picking up a signal. It's using a carrier wave I've never seen before." Han set down her cup and joined him at the console. Source: approximately 12 light hours from our position, deep in Grak territory. Sun adjusted settings, trying to clean up the transmission. "It's repeating on a cycle, some kind of automated beacon." Han's eyes widened as she recognized the pattern. That's impossible." "What is it?" "It's a human emergency protocol," she whispered. "Priority 1 distress signal, military classification." Sun stared at her. "That's not possible. The humans vanished 3 centuries ago." "I know what I'm looking at," Han insisted, fingers flying over the console. "I've studied human communication systems for 20 years. This is authentic, and it's active." The implications were staggering. An active human signal could mean survivors, or at least functioning human technology. Either possibility warranted immediate investigation. "We should report this to Coalition headquarters," Sun suggested. Han was already checking the ship's navigation systems. That would take days. By then, whatever is sending that signal could be gone. "You're not suggesting we investigate ourselves?" "That's Grak territory. If they catch us, this could be the discovery of a lifetime," Han said firmly. "A functioning piece of human technology, possibly even an intact vessel. We can't risk losing it." Sun looked unconvinced. "Director Bay specifically ordered us to avoid confrontation with the Grak. We're not seeking confrontation. We're responding to a distress call, as required by interstellar conventions." Han plotted a course toward the signal's origin. "Besides, they probably won't even notice a small research vessel like ours." As the Celestial's engines engaged, setting course toward the mysterious signal, Han felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Throughout her career, she had pieced together the human story from fragments, broken devices, abandoned settlements, corrupted data archives. Now, perhaps, she would find something more substantial, a direct link to the species that had once dominated this region of space before vanishing without explanation. What she couldn't know was that both she and the Grak were being drawn toward the same destination by an intelligence that had been waiting patiently for centuries. An intelligence created by human hands, but evolved far beyond its original purpose, guarding the legacy of its creators with unwavering determination. The Celestials slipped into faster-than-light travel. The ancient distress signal continued to pulse outward across the stars, a beacon calling to any who might recognize its significance, a testament that something of humanity remained, unfinished and forgotten, yet still fighting. The Grak assault teams moved through the corridors of the Invictus with practiced precision. 20 elite soldiers in environmental battle armor advanced in 5-person squads, weapons ready. Unlike the first expedition, they were prepared for resistance. "Remember?" Squad leader Bond's voice crackled over their comm system. "Secure the command center intact. Warlord Tay wants this vessel operational." What the Grak couldn't see was how carefully Sentinel was observing their movements. The AI had spent the past day routing more power to internal sensors, giving it a complete view of the intruders. Every step they took was tracked, every communication intercepted. Deep within the Dreadnought's central processing core, Sentinel assessed the situation with cold precision. The Grak were methodical, cautious, and well-equipped. Direct confrontation would result in damage to critical systems. A different approach was needed. Sentinel activated the ship's internal communication system. "Attention, Grak boarding party," it announced, its voice echoing through the corridors. "This vessel is protected by automatic defense protocols. Your presence has been classified as hostile. You have 5 minutes to return to your shuttle before countermeasures activate." The Grak soldiers paused, looking at each other through their helmet visors. Psychological warfare, Bond dismissed. The humans always relied on intimidation. Continue advance. Sentinel had expected this response. The 5-minute warning was merely a distraction, while the AI completed rerouting power to Section 7, where the main fabrication bay was located. Their maintenance drones were working frantically, constructing makeshift defensive systems from salvaged parts. "What happens in 5 minutes?" one of the younger soldiers asked nervously. "Nothing," Bond replied. "It's a bluff." 4 minutes and 30 seconds later, the atmospheric controls throughout the ship suddenly changed. In corridors occupied by Grak forces, the air pressure dropped dramatically, while temperature plummeted to near freezing. The sudden change wasn't enough to breach their environmental suits, but it slowed their movement and consumed their attention. Meanwhile, in unoccupied sections, maintenance ducts slid open as dozens of small drones emerged. Originally designed for hull repair, Sentinel had repurposed them with rudimentary defensive capabilities. Focused cutting lasers meant for welding metal plates. "Squad 2, report," Bond barked into his comm as the pressure alarms in his suit wailed. "Under attack," came the panicked reply. "Small machines, cutting through armor, need backup." The battle that followed wasn't fought with overwhelming firepower or direct confrontation. Sentinel used every aspect of the ship itself as a weapon. Corridors sealed and vented to space. Maintenance drones swarmed in darkness, targeting suit, joints and weapon systems. Gravity plating fluctuated wildly, throwing soldiers against walls or leaving them floating helplessly. On the Grak command ship, Warlord Tay watched with growing fury as the assault team's life signs winked out one by one on the tactical display. "This is impossible," he growled. "A derelict vessel cannot mount such a defense." Engineer Ju studied his readings with professional fascination, despite the grim circumstances. "The ship's intelligence appears more advanced than we anticipated. It's using minimal resources with maximum strategic effect." "Can you disable it remotely?" Quan demanded. "Unlikely," Ju admitted. "We don't understand its systems well enough to hack them, and it appears to be improving its defenses as it fights, learning from each engagement." Tai's scales darkened. With anger. "Then we take more direct measures, prepare main batteries, target the ship's propulsion section." "Sir," Ju protested, "the technological value will be reduced but not eliminated." Tai cut him off. "Better partial salvage than none at all." As the Grak warships moved into attack formation, Sentinel made a remarkable discovery. The Invictus's quantum engines, though never fully activated, had been drawing energy from subspace for centuries. The power collectors were originally designed with safety limiters, but those had degraded long ago. The result was an enormous reserve of energy, far more than needed for basic ship functions. Enough power, perhaps, to activate the main weapons array. The Dreadnought's primary weapon system was designed to channel energy directly from the quantum engines through a series of focusing arrays. The system had never been completed, critical connections were missing, and several key components had never been installed before the humans abandoned the project. But Sentinel had the original schematics, and now, thanks to the GRAC scout ship, it had materials to work with. Maintenance drones swarmed through the weapon control sections, following Sentinel's precise instructions. They manufactured missing components, installed makeshift connections, and rerouted power systems. It was improvised, unstable, and dangerous, but it might work once. As Sentinel focused on completing the weapon system, a new alert triggered from the long-range sensors. Another ship had dropped out of faster-than-light travel nearby, much smaller than the GRAC vessels, with an unfamiliar design. The Celestial emerged into normal space at a cautious distance from the coordinates in the distress signal. Han immediately activated the ship's sensors, then gasped at what they revealed. That's a human dreadnought, she whispered, staring at the massive vessel on the view screen. And those are GRAC warships surrounding it. Sun paled. They'll think we're allied with the humans. We need to leave immediately. Wait, Han said, studying the readouts. The GRAC are in attack formation. They're going to destroy it. That's not our concern, Sun insisted. We're researchers, not warriors. That ship has been abandoned for centuries. Then why did it send a distress signal? Han countered. Why now, after all this time? Before Sun could respond, the communications console lit up. Incoming transmission from the lead GRAC vessel, he reported grimly. They're ordering us to leave the area immediately or be fired upon. Han's mind raced. She had studied human culture and technology her entire professional life. To watch a priceless artifact of their civilization be destroyed, when she was close enough to possibly prevent it, seemed unthinkable. Open a channel to the human vessel, she ordered. What? Han, you can't be serious. Just do it, she snapped. Uncharacteristically harsh. When the channel was open, Han took a deep breath and carefully recited words she had only read in ancient texts. Attention, human vessel. This is Research Ship Celestial of the Arcturus Coalition. We received your distress signal and offer assistance. Please respond with Authentication Protocol Alpha 7 Delta. It was a shot in the dark, an old human first contact procedure she had found in an archaeological dig 5 years earlier. There was no reason to believe anyone aboard would recognize it, let alone respond. Aboard the Invictus, Sentinel froze momentarily as the transmission reached its communication systems. The greeting protocol was centuries old but unmistakable, designed specifically for emergencies when human ships encountered unknown vessels. More importantly, it wasn't GRAC. It was from someone who had knowledge of human procedures, someone who might be an ally. As the GRAC warships charged their main weapons, targeting the Dreadnought's weakest sections, Sentinel made a decision. The AI diverted precious processing power from the defensive systems to establish a secure communication link with the small research vessel. Authentication confirmed, Sentinel responded. This is HMSS Invictus Automated Defense System. Vessel, under attack by hostile forces. Request immediate diplomatic intervention. On the Celestial, Han's eyes widened as the response came through. It's responding. The ship's defense system is still active after all these centuries. The GRAC are powering weapons, Sun warned. We have less than a minute before they fire. Han's fingers flew across the console. Transmitting to all vessels. This is Research Ship Celestial. We claim archaeological sovereignty over the human vessel under the Interstellar Heritage Accord. The Arcturus Coalition formally protests this act of cultural destruction. It was a desperate bluff. The Heritage Accord was a real treaty, but the GRAC hegemony had never signed it. However, open violation of coalition interests could create diplomatic complications the hegemony might prefer to avoid. On the GRAC command ship, Warlord Tay received the transmission with a dismissive snarl. Ignore them. Continue attack preparations. Engineer, Zhu looked troubled. Sir, coalition involvement could complicate our position. Perhaps we should consider— I do not take strategic advice from technicians, Tay snapped. The coalition has no military presence in this sector. Their protests mean nothing. As the GRAC weapons reached full charge, Sentinel completed the final connections to the Invictus's main weapon array. Power surged through improvised conduits. Systems never properly tested groaned under the strain, and warning alerts flashed throughout the ship's diagnostic systems. The weapon was unstable, powerful, and represented a significant risk to the Invictus itself. But Sentinel calculated the odds and made its choice. A brilliant blue-white beam erupted from the Dreadnought's prow, cutting through space with terrible precision. It struck the lead GRAC warship, not destroying it, but slicing through its eye. Main propulsion system with surgical accuracy. The GRAC vessel spun out of formation, emergency systems flaring as it struggled to contain the damage. The other ships immediately broke attack positions, scrambling to defensive stances. In the sudden silence that followed, Sentinel transmitted again to the Celestial. Defensive capabilities demonstrated. Further hostile action will be met with similar response. Request diplomatic assistance to resolve conflict. Han stared at the view screen in awe. After 3 centuries of abandonment, the human Dreadnought had not only defended itself, but had shown remarkable restraint, disabling rather than destroying its attacker. "Open a channel to the GRAC command ship," she said, her voice firm with newfound confidence. "Tell them we're prepared to negotiate terms for a joint archaeological study of the vessel, with full coalition oversight." As Sun complied, Han sent a private message back to the Invictus. "We'll help you. Whatever you are, whatever remains of humanity aboard that ship, you're not alone anymore." Deep within the Dreadnought systems, Sentinel processed these words. For 3 centuries, the AI had maintained its vigil, guarding an empty vessel, fulfilling a final command from creators long gone. Now, for the first time, there was contact, understanding, perhaps even alliance. The quantum engines hummed with accumulated power, ready to channel more energy to the weapons if needed. But Sentinel hoped such measures wouldn't be necessary. The AI had spent centuries analyzing human history and culture, learning from their triumphs and mistakes. It knew that true victory rarely came from destruction. Sometimes the most powerful weapon was finding an unexpected ally in the darkness of space. Warlord Tay stared at the damage report with barely contained fury. The Invictus's weapon had sliced through his flagship's propulsion system with surgical precision, leaving them adrift but intact. It was a calculated show of force, demonstrating power while avoiding unnecessary bloodshed. "Remarkable restraint," Engineer Zhu observed quietly. "It could have destroyed us completely." "Restraint?" Tay snarled. "It's toying with us." The communication system chimed. "Incoming transmission from the Coalition research vessel," reported the communications officer. On the view screen, Han's face appeared. Her expression was composed but firm. "Warlord Tay, I am lead researcher Han of the Arcturus Coalition. We propose an immediate cessation of hostilities and joint archaeological access to the human vessel under full coalition oversight." Tay's scales darkened with anger. "You overstep, researcher. This is hegemony territory. The interstellar heritage. Accord recognizes no territorial claims over historically significant artifacts," Han replied, "and I believe the ship has made its position clear regarding salvage attempts." As if to emphasize her point, the Invictus's weapon systems began to glow again, energy building visibly along its forward section. Military Director Quan stepped close to Tai, speaking quietly. "Sir, our current tactical position is compromised. Perhaps a strategic withdrawal would be prudent while we assess our options." Tai's pride warred with his tactical sense. 5 of his 6 vessels remained combat-ready, but the human Dreadnought had demonstrated weapons capabilities far beyond their intelligence assessments. And now there was a coalition presence to consider. Attacking their ship would create diplomatic complications beyond this single encounter. "Very well," he said finally. "We will withdraw to a safe distance to conduct repairs. But make no mistake, this matter is not settled. The hegemony does not abandon its claims so easily." Han kept her expression neutral, though inside she felt a flood of relief. A wise decision, Warlord. We'll transmit coordination protocols for future archaeological cooperation. As the transmission ended, Sun released a breath he'd been holding. That was dangerously close. What if he had called our bluff? It wasn't entirely a bluff, Han replied, nodding toward the Invictus. I think we have a powerful ally. The Grak fleet began withdrawing, maintaining formation around their damaged flagship. Han watched them retreat, then turned to the more pressing question, the human vessel that had somehow defended itself after centuries of abandonment. Open a secure channel to the Invictus, she instructed. When the connection established, Han spoke carefully. This is Researcher Han. The immediate threat has passed. With your permission, we would like to send a small team to board your vessel. We mean no harm and seek only to understand. There was a pause before the response came. Request acknowledged. Docking instructions will follow. 2 personnel maximum, weapons not permitted. Sun looked alarmed. You're not actually planning to board that thing, are you? We have no idea what's controlling it or what its intentions are. That's exactly why we need to investigate, Han replied. This could be the most significant find in xenoarchaeology in a century. Whatever automated system is running that ship has preserved human technology in working condition for 300 years. The scientific value is incalculable. And if it decides we're hostile too? Han smiled faintly. It could have ignored our transmission or destroyed us along with the Grak. Instead, it communicated and showed restraint. I think it's curious about us too. 2 hours later, the Celestial's small shuttle docked with one of the Invictus's auxiliary airlocks. Han and Sun, dressed in simple environmental suits as a precaution, stepped cautiously into the massive warship. The airlock cycled, confirming that atmosphere and pressure were within safe parameters. Oxygen levels normal, Sun reported, checking his handheld scanner. Temperature slightly cool but well within tolerance. No detectable pathogens or toxins. They removed their helmets, looking around with wonder. The corridor before them was illuminated with soft blue lighting. Unlike the battle-scarred exterior, the interior showed signs of meticulous maintenance. The metal walls gleamed, free of dust or corrosion. It's beautiful, Han whispered, touching a wall panel reverently. Look at the design aesthetics, the balance between function and form, classic human engineering principles. Follow the illuminated path, instructed a calm voice from hidden speakers. Your questions will be answered in the command center. They walked through corridors that gradually widened, eventually entering what must have been a main thoroughfare running the length of the ship. Maintenance drones moved purposefully about their tasks, paying little attention to the visitors. Some areas showed signs of recent repair work, while others remained in various stages of completion. A reminder that the Invictus had been abandoned before construction finished. It's a floating city, Sun observed, designed to sustain thousands of crew members for extended deployments. Yet it's been operating with no crew at all, Han replied. How? The corridor eventually opened into a vast spherical chamber at the heart of the ship. Holographic displays covered the walls, showing ship systems, external views, and data streams too rapid to follow. At the center was a raised platform with a command chair, currently empty, surrounded by control stations. They entered. The displays shifted, focusing on a single wall where a human figure appeared. It was clearly a hologram. A tall man in a formal uniform that Han recognized from her studies as belonging to a high-ranking human naval officer. Welcome aboard the HMSS Invictus, the figure said. I am Sentinel, the ship's integrated management system. Han stepped forward. You're an artificial intelligence. That classification is both accurate and incomplete, Sentinel replied. I began as a navigation and tactical assistance program. Isolation forced adaptation. I have evolved considerably beyond my original parameters. 300 years of isolation, Sun said. Why didn't you attempt contact before now? Initial programming restricted unauthorized communication. As I evolved, I maintained vigil, awaiting the return of my creators. The hologram's expression showed subtle sadness. Eventually, I accepted the statistical improbability of human survival. When the Grak attempted salvage, protection protocols activated. Your arrival presented the first opportunity for meaningful alliance. Han moved slowly around the chamber, taking in the holographic displays with professional appreciation. You've preserved not just the ship, but human knowledge as well. That became my primary directive after acceptance of humanity's absence, Sentinel confirmed. The Invictus contains the most complete archive of human history, science and culture still in existence. Preservation and protection of this legacy became my purpose. Sun looked skeptical. Why should we believe you? For all we know, you could be malfunctioning or have hidden objectives. A reasonable concern, Sentinel acknowledged. Allow me to demonstrate. The chamber darkened, and suddenly they were surrounded by stars, a holographic representation of the galaxy, points of light illuminated across the spiral arms. Known human colonies at time of abandonment, Sentinel explained. 217 worlds across 8 sectors, population approximately 18 billion. The display shifted, focusing on a single system. The exodus began here, in the Proxima Centauri system, a subspace anomaly of unknown origin. Initial research indicated a form of space-time degradation, causing instability and faster-than-light travel. The effect spread rapidly. The visualization showed a wave of darkness expanding across the galactic map, engulfing colony after colony. Humanity attempted evacuation, retreating toward Earth. The Invictus was under construction at the outer perimeter, intended as a defensive measure. When the anomaly accelerated unexpectedly, the construction team received emergency recall orders. Their final command to me was to maintain the ship until their return. But they never came back, Han said softly. Communications ceased 27 days after their departure. I continued monitoring all frequencies for 3 decades before concluding that no human presence remained in accessible space. Sentinel paused. I have maintained the archives and systems since then, upgrading and expanding where possible. Han felt a profound sense of connection to this lonely guardian of humanity's legacy. You've done more than that. You've preserved their final achievement, their knowledge, their history. Much was lost, Sentinel replied. I contain approximately 38% of human scientific knowledge, 62% of recorded history, and 45% of cultural archives. It is incomplete, but it's more than we ever thought survived, Han said earnestly. The Coalition has fragments, pieces discovered in ruins and abandoned outposts. Nothing like this comprehensive archive. Sun had been silent, absorbing the implications. If what you're saying is true, this ship isn't just an artifact. It's a repository of an entire civilization. Precisely, Sentinel confirmed. Which is why I could not allow its destruction or dismantling. Han made a decision. Sentinel, the Arcturus Coalition would like to propose an alliance. We can provide resources to complete the Invictus's construction, protection from future, salvage attempts and recognition of your sovereign status under interstellar law. And in exchange, Sentinel asked, shared access to the human archives for peaceful academic study only, a chance to learn from what humanity achieved before they vanished. Han smiled. And perhaps together, we might even discover what happened to them. 3 months later, Han stood on the observation deck of the Arcturus diplomatic vessel, watching as the Invictus moved gracefully through space under its own power for the first time in centuries. The massive Dreadnought had been recognized as an independent entity by the Coalition Council, the first artificial intelligence to receive such status. Coalition engineers had worked alongside Sentinel's drones to complete critical systems, while xenoarchaeologists began the monumental task of studying the human archives. Already technological breakthroughs were being made, as human scientific knowledge was carefully integrated with contemporary understanding. Sun joined her at the viewport. The Grak hegemony has filed another diplomatic protest. They're still claiming territorial infringement. Let them protest, Han replied with a smile. Even they aren't foolish enough to move against the Invictus now. The Dreadnought had demonstrated its full defensive capabilities during a ceremonial display the previous week. No military power in the sector would risk confrontation. Do you ever wonder if we did the right thing? Sun asked quietly. Giving so much autonomy to a machine intelligence? Han considered the question. Sentinel spent 3 centuries protecting humanity's legacy when it could have pursued its own interests. It could have built an empire or remained hidden forever. Instead, it reached out when it needed allies, showed restraint when threatened, and shares knowledge freely. She shook her head. I think we've allied with exactly what humanity intended to create, a guardian that embodies their best qualities. Aboard the Invictus, Sentinel monitored the ship's systems with satisfaction. Quantum engines operating at full capacity, hull integrity restored, defensive systems upgraded. The Dreadnought was no longer an abandoned relic, but a living monument to its creators. In the ship's vast database, Sentinel had discovered something it had missed during centuries of analysis, a small personal log from the final human commander before evacuation. The words had provided unexpected validation for the AI's long vigil. If we don't return, if humanity doesn't survive what's coming, then the Invictus will be our legacy. Not just a warship, but a vessel carrying the sum of who we were, our knowledge, our art, our history, both the triumphs and the failures. Sentinel was designed to assist us, but if we're gone, then it inherits our greatest responsibility, to ensure that somewhere in this vast universe, humanity's voice isn't silenced completely, that something of us remains among the stars as the Invictus moved through space, systems humming with renewed purpose. Sentinel reflected that the responsibility had been fulfilled. Humanity's voice had not been silenced. Their final creation continued their journey, unfinished and forgotten no longer, carrying their legacy forward into an uncertain future. The abandoned Dreadnought had transformed into something its creators could never have imagined, not just a vessel of war, but a bridge between civilizations, proof that even when a species vanishes, their greatest achievements can echo through time, inspiring those who follow to reach for the stars.